Hello, YouTube land. This is Brenton coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. Before we get started, if anyone out there has a story they'd like to share, you can come on the show and tell about something interesting that happened, whether it be Bigfoot, Dogman, something supernatural. If you think it's interesting, shoot me an email at brentonsawin@gmail.com. And if you want to contribute to help with this show, you can go to a link in the description, PayPal me, and I appreciate every contribution that I've gotten. And also, I'm going to have a online, kind of like a social hub / store coming up soon. And when that's up and ready, I'll come back to this video and put a link in the description. So if you are watching this and the video is a week or so old, you might look in the description and check out the store. There's supposed to be all kinds of really cool stuff in it, and a place where you can do kind of social stuff too. I haven't really seen the site yet, but it's being worked on, so I think that'll be pretty cool, and it'll help me out a tremendous amount. Anyway, we have a guest. His name is John today. He's got some Bigfoot stories and maybe other stuff too. I'm not sure what all he has. We talked some last night, but hey John, if you would, man, just introduce yourself, give a little gist of who you are and where you're at and everything, and then we'll get into your story.
Yeah, my name's John. I live in Northwest Georgia. I avid outdoorsman. I hunt and fish every chance I get. Try to get out there in the woods as much as I can. I drive truck over the road. I've had quite a few things happen out there in the woods that kind of hard to explain what it is.
Right. Well, if you want to, I guess let's just start with your hunting experience, and then we'll get into whatever else you have to tell. You said something about Pennsylvania, but you didn't really have time because you had some company come in last night.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about the hunting incident.
Okay, about, if I'm recalling right, it was a Saturday after Thanksgiving. Me and my wife's cousin and one of his friends was going to go hunting down on a ridge where we hunt at a lot. And we left the house about 6:30 or 6 o'clock that morning, and the place we was going to go to, there was already somebody there, so it's public land. We had to go to a different spot. We got to the other spot about 8:30 that morning, and instead of finding a place to set up, we were just going to try to do some spot and stalk. So we went back to the end of a Forest Service road. It's about 4.5 to 5 miles long, and at the end of the road, the road continues, but you can't drive down through there because they got the dirt humped up where you can't get through it. And we was walking down the Forest Service road, and my wife's cousin, he was in front, and he was leading the way. He's not a very experienced hunter, and the road comes up over a little rise, and we come over the little rise there, and he spotted 3 deer that was standing in the road around the bend, and they took off up across the ridge. And I told my wife's cousin and his friend to set up a couple 100 yards apart, and I was going to go up across the top of the ridge and work my way down through there and make a big circle and try to see if I could flush the deer back to them. So after they got set up, I started working my way up to the top of the ridge and down across the top, and I got about 500-600 yards away from where they was at, and started to go back down to start making my circle back around. And about 150 yards down across the hill, I come up to a thicket, and as I approached that thicket, I heard something in there go like that at me. And I just got that feeling like I wasn't supposed to be there. My first instinct was to get away from there. I backed up, started going back the way I came. And I guess carry a Smith & Wesson Shield 45 ACP whenever I'm in the woods hunting. And the whole time I had that thing in my hand whenever I was working my way back to where my wife's cousin and his friend was at. And I just had that feeling like I was being followed and felt like I was being watched. Got back to where they was at, and I just told them, I got that feeling like we're not supposed to be here. We need to get out of here.
So the huff, it was like a huff that was, that you knew wasn't normal.
Yeah. I've spent a lot of time in the woods. I've been around a lot of black bears, and I've heard vocalizations that black bears make, and this, it was too deep to be a black bear or anything else that I've heard in the woods. I mean, it sounded like whatever made that noise had a big set of lungs.
Right. Do you think that maybe sometimes, too, these things are kind of protective over the deer?
I believe so.
Yeah, I mean, what we were talking last night, and I was telling you about down there at Dale Hollow, there was a series of like 5 islands, and it seems like they herd the deer back to the last 2 islands, and then they live on one of them that's in the middle. That's where I had my encounters.
Yep.
But it was I've seen the deer swimming, across from island to island on the last 2 there, and I just had a feeling that they were herding them down there where they can't get back to the mainland, and they're managing that herd. I mean, that's a guess.
One thing too, that place that we went to, I've been back in there quite a bit, and I've never really seen anybody hunt that area back there before.
Right. Do you think?
And after I heard that noise, I mean, there was birds chirping and stuff while I was going back through there. But after I heard that huff, everything just got dead silent. There wasn't no birds making any noises. I didn't even see a single squirrel.
Yeah. And that was another thing that I noticed too on that island that I was camping on, is I never seen any wildlife ever. I mean, it was like there wasn't even birds, man. The only thing I ever saw there out of all the times I've camped there was a snake, a little copperhead, and that was it, And I remember thinking, it's like, golly, there's freaking no animals anywhere. But then I would see deer and I'd see birds and all kinds of stuff on the last 2 islands that's kind of a little further away from the mainland. And it just seems to me that they're herding the stuff to that last 2 islands and managing it. I don't know, it'd be interesting. That next time I go there, I'm gonna check it out. And on those 2 islands too, I camped on one of those one time, and that was where I got zapped. I think I was getting into their area, where they manage their refrigerator, It's like, get off my refrigerator here, But yeah. Do you think also that these things take advantage of hunting season and try to look for opportunity to
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories about hunters that shot a deer and seeing it go down, and they get up to where where the deer went down, and it's not there.
Yeah.
Or they start following a blood trail, and they get to where the blood ends, and it looks like something laid down, and then they don't see any more blood or nothing from there.
Yeah, no drag marks or nothing. Yeah.
Yep. And I think they also might take advantage of hunters pushing the deer towards them.
Yeah. So did you ever see those 3 deer again?
No, I had found where they went up across the ridge, and they went up the hill to the top of the ridge and went in the direction that I was going down the ridge, which would have been going north, because that ridge runs north and south. It runs, it's probably 25 miles long.
Yeah. So did you get that huff at you near the ridge?
It was about 150 yards from the top of the ridge whenever I got down to that thicket. And that thicket was so thick you couldn't see anything in there.
Yeah. Huh. And that feeling that you get when you feel like you're not supposed to be there, what do you think makes a person get that feeling?
I think it's some kind of infrasound that they put off.
Yeah, I've wondered that myself. Some people say we have a sixth sense kind of thing, and that might be true too. I don't know, but
Yep.
I believe it has something to do with infrasound. At least some of the times I think it does.
Yeah, I think they can control the frequency of the infrasound and zap you if they want to, or just give you, put off enough to make you feel like you're not supposed to be there, and that's their way of getting you out of their territory.
Yeah. You know, sometimes when I'm looking at like the Bible and stuff, and the Bible talks about being smote with the spirit of fear, and God would drive the enemy out, from before you. And I think that's done with infrasound in the scriptures, because it in a way, when you look at the results of being smote in the scriptures, whether it be with the spirit of fear or blindness or different words they use to describe it, the result was a lot of times similar to what you hear people tell about Bigfoot and what happened to them, when they got zapped or something. So it's kind of interesting to compare that. Yeah, well, too bad you didn't get the deer, man.
Yeah, it's been a slow season down here this year. The rut come in late, and not a whole lot of action going on this year.
So you said you was firing your smoker up. What are you smoking today?
I'm smoking a pork butt today.
Man, sounds good.
And I got a couple deer loins in there. I'm gonna wrap those up in bacon and smoke them here in a little while too.
My goodness, I might have to just jump in the truck and head that way.
Well, you're more than welcome to. I'll have plenty of food.
It sounds like it, man. I bet it's going to be good too. You can't beat smoking some meat on a smoker.
No, sir.
That's a good feeling, and get the air smelling good, and the neighbors start looking.
Yep. Hopefully, them boogers won't smell it and come around.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully not, man. They don't come out there and snag something off of the smoker, and when you ain't looking. They've been known to do it, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And it'll drive them crazy when they smell something that good cooking.
Oh, yeah.
So, anyway, what's your next story, man? The Pennsylvania thing.
Okay, you want me to get into that, or you want me to tell what's happened, a couple of the other things that I've encountered out in the woods while I'm hunting?
Yeah, go with those first, and then go to the Pennsylvania thing.
Let's see, it was last year, me and my wife's cousin, again, we was down on the opposite side of the ridge that we was hunting a few weeks ago, and we was on a trail, it's called the Pinhoti Trail, and we was working our way down through there. We was trying to find us a place where we was going to set up because we was going to hunt that evening. And Brian, he can hear better than I can. I'm deaf in my left ear, and he stopped all of a sudden. He turned around and looked at me and put his hand up to his ear and said, "I hear something." So I slowly walked up to where he was at, and we knelt down beside a tree there. And he said as soon as he stopped, the noise that he heard sounded like something walking stopped. And I asked him what it sounded like. He said it sounded like somebody else, a person walked on two legs. And there wasn't anybody else around there. And the direction that the sound was coming from, there wouldn't have been nobody down on the opposite side of that bridge because it drops off real steep. And we sat there for probably a good 15, 20 minutes and didn't hear anything else. So I told him, I said, well, let's go on down through here and see if we can find a place to set up for this evening. And whenever we started walking again, we just got that feeling like we was being watched. And we went, about a quarter mile on down that trail. And I just looked at my wife's cousin and I said, I don't think we're going to find a place down here to hunt. I said, I think we just need to go back to the truck and call it a day. And we just had that feeling like we was being watched again.
Yeah, and you know, when you hear footsteps, you can tell if it's bipedal or not.
Yeah, he said it was bipedal. He said it wasn't quadruped. He said it sounded like it was. He said whatever it was heavy, and as soon as he stopped, it was like he took one more step and stopped.
Right, and you know it's not a person, man. Because I mean, I wouldn't be ever brave enough to be sneaking beside hunters.
No.
And take a risk of getting shot. I've been in the woods before, and I knew, my friends were set up somewhere, and I didn't know where they were, and I got worried that they might shoot me,
Yep.
You don't mess around like that when you're out in the woods when people are out there with guns, trigger happy, trying to get a deer or something.
Yep.
I mean, that'd be
yeah, because some people, they'll shoot at anything that moves. They don't care.
Right. You don't get.
That's one reason why I really don't like to hunt public land. If I hunt public land, I try to get back away from where everybody else is going to be at. Around here, people will go a couple hundred yards from the road or from their truck or whatever, and find a place to set up. And me, I'll go a couple miles if I need to.
Yeah, and wear that orange too. That's important.
Yep.
When you got other hunters around. There's no one around.
Yeah, I've always got an orange hat on, my orange vest, and I always carry a backpack with me with my little survival kit, and snacks and stuff in it. I always have a orange cover over that, too.
Right.
I want to make sure that somebody else sees me whenever I'm out there on that public land.
Right. Yeah, that's the best way to be, man. Safe. Yeah, so this was the same area you had the first experience, or close to it?
It was probably 15 miles from that. On the opposite end of that, the ridge. It's all Forest Service land, and that, like I said before, that ridge probably runs 25 miles down through there. And you got a town in between where we had to, where that huffed at me the other week, and then where we was at last year.
Yeah. So that could still be the same family, huh, of Bigfoot?
It's quite possible.
Is it 15 miles? That's not really that big of a distance.
Yeah, that's nothing for them to travel.
Right. Huh. Well, what else have you experienced out there in that area?
I've been hunting in two areas for, I've lived down here going on 14 years now. Probably 13 years I've been hunting that area. And there's been quite a few times I've gotten into them woods and just decided to turn around and go back to the truck for no reason at all. Like I just felt like I wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
And other times I go back to them same spots and everything seems fine.
Yeah, and it's not like you are purposely doing that. I've had that experience myself. I was telling you about that where they had those logs were laid end to end. I just had this sense, man, don't go past these logs, and
yep.
It was like it looked like a fence to me, and
mm-hmm.
I mean, any other time growing up, I never really remember many times, having don't go there kind of feeling. So it's kind of odd when you start paying attention and you learn a little bit about these creatures and you see those signs like those arches and X's and stuff like that, and you notice that that's where you've been having those feelings. It's, it starts to make sense more. And yeah, I remember a few times going fishing and just all of a sudden had this weird feeling like, get out of here,
Yep.
And
yeah, it's like I told you last night. There's one place we go trout fishing every spring. It's on a wildlife management area, and if I'm thinking right, it's about 25,000 acres. It's
wow.
allotted for that wildlife management area.
Right.
And they stalk that creek with trout about once a week throughout the spring and summer. And my father-in-law and my neighbor that goes with us, they usually fish pretty close to where they stalk the creek at, but I'll get about as far away from the road and the truck as I can, because them fish and trout, they'll swim downstream and they'll hold over through the winter over there. And you usually catch bigger trout down in there. And it's that one spot I get to. It's in the bend of the creek about, I'd say it's probably a mile and a half, maybe 2 miles from the truck. I get to that bend in the creek, and I just cannot force myself to go no further every single time I go there.
Huh. I believe I think they fish too, don't you? Noodle and stuff like that.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think that the fishing is probably a decent part of their diet, and sometimes.
Yeah, I believe if someone got the opportunity to, it'd probably come up and snatch my stringer that's laying on the bank too.
Yeah. I've had stringers come up missing before, and now that I think back on it, it's like, hey, I wonder if that's what happens. Sneaky little buggers.
And it's that same spot over there. I had an encounter with a black bear about 2 years ago. I got done with my fishing, and I was going back to the truck to meet up with my father-in-law and my neighbor, and I come around the bend in the trail, and there was a black bear standing about 25 yards from me, a big old male black bear, and he stood there, and he looked at me, and he started popping his jaws at me, and I just stood my ground, and I don't know, a couple minutes went by, and he decided to go on up across the hill away from me.
Wow. Golly, man. Bear encounters, that's scary.
Yeah, after that one, I always started carrying my 357 with me whenever we go over there.
Yeah, most of the time black bear will run.
Yeah.
It's rare that they ever attack people, but they can, if they're cornered. Yep. And maybe
especially an old sow that's got cubs.
Oh yeah, man, that's bad dangerous there. And they'll be on you in a second too if they want to. You can't outrun them, and heck, even if you go up a tree, they can climb.
Yep.
I got some buddies that bear hunt and stuff sometimes, and they tell me something about it, and it sounds kind of dangerous after you corner them and you shoot them and stuff. You got to know what you're doing. You don't just go out there without any experienced hunter. Your first time or something.
Yeah, I lived in Montana and done quite a bit of bear hunting whenever I lived out there. We're allowed to get 2 bear here in Georgia. But I've never really gone out after any.
It's good eating too. It's good eating.
Oh yeah, it is.
They eat berries and stuff like that. It's actually pretty good meat.
Yeah, I'm thinking about trying to get out there, go over that wildlife management area next year and try to do a little bit of bear hunting.
Yeah. You ever see any hogs out there? Wild hogs?
There's a couple of them wildlife management areas that I hunt. There's hogs there, but I've never came across any, but I've seen the sign where they've been there.
Yeah, I haven't either. Sometimes whenever I've gotten a deer tag, they give you, you can take a hog too. And I was kind of thinking, wow, man, I hope I run across a hog, but I've never seen one, out there. They're there, but...
Yeah, down here we can hunt them all year long on private property, and any time that hunting season's open for small game, we can use small game firearms like 22 or 22 Magnum. And anytime during hunting season, deer season, we can take them with our hunting rifles.
Yeah. So the Bigfoot in that area, then they've got quite a few things on the menu there, then, huh?
Oh yeah, we've got hogs, turkey, deer, bear.
Yeah. So I would say the population in Georgia probably is a lot bigger than you think. Some would think.
Yeah, see, a lot of people don't realize that North Georgia, where I'm at, we've got mountains here. Especially whenever you get over in northeast Georgia, you got the Blue Ridge Mountains over there, and the Appalachian Trail starts in North Georgia.
Yeah. And I noticed too, whenever you fly, there's a lot of restricted airspace out there, and there's a lot of land that's not, built on. So Georgia,
right off the top of my head, I can come up with 8 different wildlife management areas. It's at least 20,000 acres, and then the one is, I think it's 90,000 acres, and part of it is the wilderness area. You can't take any kind of motorized vehicle or a bicycle in that area.
Yeah, that'd be just a perfect place to have, Bigfoot.
There's a lot of reports comes out of that area from hunters.
Yeah.
Every year.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of reports from Georgia. That's for sure. There are now. In Georgia? I think in the South, it seems to me like a lot of times they're a little bit more aggressive than they are in the Northwest, don't you think?
I believe so.
You get a lot of reports of the bad encounters from the South. I don't know if it's because it's hot and getting a bad attitude or something or what. But.
Yeah, that's where I am. I get hot, I get ill.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful state, that's for sure. Georgia is.
Yeah, it is. I spent a lot of time out in Montana whenever I was growing up, and this area here reminds me a lot of being out there.
Right.
I was born in Maryland, and then whenever I was about 7 or 8, we moved to Kentucky there outside of Elizabethtown. Our property joined Fort Knox there.
Yeah.
And then whenever I was about 11 or so, we moved out to Montana where my grandfather lives.
Right. So how did
my grandfather on my mom's side, he got sick, so I decided to move back to Kentucky to be closer to him. And then I met my wife about 13 years ago and moved down here to Georgia with her.
All right. Well, you were talking about Pennsylvania last night. How was you up there?
I drive truck over the road, and I have a dedicated route that goes up there to Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania every week.
Oh, okay.
And I've been running that route for, I've been going on probably 3 years now.
Wow. I've never been to Pennsylvania, so...
It's pretty country up there, too.
Yeah. Huh. I've been to a lot of states, but that's one of them I haven't been to. Or at least I don't remember. Maybe I went when I was young or something.
Yeah, I've been up there so much. My truck could probably find its own way there without me driving if it wanted to.
So did you have this experience in Pennsylvania when you were driving the truck?
Yeah, I can't explain what it was, but I seen something along the road. It was probably about 2:30 in the morning, somewhere thereabouts. About 2 years ago, I was on I-80 west going towards Bloomsburg, and there's a little town there between Interstate 81 and Bloomsburg. It's what's the name? Drums, Pennsylvania. And it's a mountainous area there, and I was going I-80 west, and I got about 3 miles on the other side of Drums, Pennsylvania, and the interstate kind of goes around a curve, and as I was going around the curve, my headlights spotted a dead deer laying along the road on the left-hand side. And as I got closer, for some reason, I just flipped my high beams on. And as I flipped my high beams on, I seen something big and black off on the right shoulder duck down into the woods.
It was there checking that deer out, wasn't it?
Yeah. I don't think it was a black bear, because it looked like it had been standing upright, and then it just dropped down to all fours.
Right.
And judging by the front end of my truck, the top of the spot mirrors on the front of my truck, I've got a 2016 Freightliner Coronado. It's like the Freightliner Classics.
Yeah.
The spot mirrors on the front is about 6.5 foot off the ground, and I'm 6'2". And judging by that, whatever it was, probably about 7 foot tall.
Wow. Yeah, that wasn't a black bear probably then, huh? And bears
No,
look more round. And, you know, when you see a bear, that's
this
round.
here looked like it had shoulders.
Right. Huh. It might have been dog man might have been a Bigfoot. Who knows? But if it had shoulders,
no telling. I've done some research on that area, and there's quite a few sightings that I've come up with for that area there.
So you didn't notice it until you flipped the high beams on because it was so black?
Yep. As soon as I flipped them high beams on, it was just like it was standing upright, and it turned towards its right and dropped down to all fours. And as it turned towards its right, I couldn't see no head. It looked like it was already starting to go down, but I could see its back, and it was real broad.
Wow. Sounds like you ran across one checking deer out. I bet that deer didn't stay there long.
Probably not.
Or dragged it off in the woods. Well, yeah, it sounds like you encountered something there in the road that kind of fits the description of Bigfoot, in my opinion.
The deer looked like it had been hit by a car. In that stretch of road there's probably 150, maybe 200 feet of woods that separates the eastbound and the westbound side.
Right. Yeah. Let's see, do you have any more stuff you want to tell?
Oh, I got a lot of stuff that I could tell. It depends on how much time you got.
I mean, I've got all the time in the world, so pick out something else, man.
A few years ago, me and my father-in-law was down on a wildlife management area here close to our house. It's probably 10, 12 miles down there. We was hunting back in an area they call the Pocket. It's on the side of a mountain, close to Lookout Mountain. And we get down there. It's a good 2-mile hike back up in there where we hunt at. And we usually split up. He'll go a few hundred yards away from me and on up the side of the mountain. As the mountain comes down, it kind of stair steps. It little flats and rocks and boulders. It's real rocky in that area. And when the hunting pressure gets on, there's very many people that hunt that area where me and my father-in-law hunt. Them deer, they'll get up in there. They'll find the roughest, toughest place they can go to get away from everybody else. And me and my father-in-law set up. He was probably 400 or 500 yards from me on the it'd be the east side of the mountain, and I was more towards the west side of the mountain. And it was probably 8:30, 9 o'clock that morning, I thought my father-in-law had been rattling with his rattling antlers. Sounded like something was up behind me about 100 yards or so that was clacking rocks together. And after me and my father-in-law met up about lunchtime, I asked him if he'd been rattling. He said, no, I didn't even bring my antlers with me. And I told him what I heard, and he said, it don't sound like anybody would have been up in there rattling with their rattling antlers. And after that, I took 2 rocks and clacked them together, and that's exactly the same noise that I'd heard.
Right. Yeah, that was one thing we were talking about last night. I was telling you that me and a friend of mine, where we did construction and stuff for a while, we could be driving down the road and we could hear someone hammering. And it would be like, okay, he's hammering a roofing nail through a piece of tin, and then we'd go over there and we'd look, and it's exactly, your ears are more perceptive than you think. You can tell what a rock sounds like, and you can tell what an antler sounds like, and you can tell what wood sounds like. So,
yep.
You knew that you heard rocks clacking.
Yep.
And that's a very distinct sound. So,
yeah, and in that same area you was talking earlier about the logs laid out together, I've come across areas down there before where it looked like somebody or something that just broke off some saplings and stripped all the limbs off of them and laid them out in a straight line across game trails.
Yeah. Wonder why they do that.
I don't know. It's
maybe
something I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I've talked to a few people, and they've looked at all these, little clues like that, and they believe they know what some of them mean. Sometimes it sounded pretty logical to me, like the leaners toward the woods.
The
or
tree bows, trees bowed over and look like they're staked to the ground, or a log laying on the top of it to hold it over. I mean, that's not natural.
Right. He was saying, this one fellow, he was saying that he was noticing whenever he seen a tree leaned towards outside the woods, there would always be a school or something like that there. Mm-hmm. And then if it was leaned inward, he had his theories and stuff, and I was like, man, might pay attention to that and see, if I see it, if that's what it was doing. And a lot of times when you see a leaner, if you look down from the direction it's pointing, you'll see another one. Almost like they're marking.
Yeah, I've noticed that before too. You stand beside of it or behind it and look straight in the direction that it's pointing. You'll see another one. You walk up to that one, you'll see another one.
Yeah,
it's kind of like they're marking a trail or something.
Yeah, yeah. And usually it's not the game trail. It's because if you're going to hunt a game trail, you don't want to be on it,
Nope.
And you'll notice like little structures near a game trail where they can reach out and snag something off the game trail. And those little things like that, I mean, when you collect the stories and you observe when you're out there, you start putting a few things together, that just makes sense to us anyway. But
yeah, there's a lot of things that I was told whenever I was growing up that's starting to make sense now about everything.
Right. Yeah, I think collecting the stories and people telling what they experience and things like that, I think that's one of the most lucrative things you can do to learn about these creatures. Collecting casting footprints and stuff like that's good too, but I think you learn more from people telling what happened.
Yep. Yeah, I listen to your show pretty much all the time while I'm driving. And I've learned a lot of stuff by listening to your show and a couple others on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I enjoy it. I always love to hear people tell stories, of something, no matter what it is. If it's interesting, it's interesting, And
Yep.
that's kind of the reason I started doing this. Is I thought, well, if I think this is interesting, there's other people gonna, and
Oh yeah.
and I cover not just Bigfoot stuff, but I cover all kinds of topics that are strange. What's the strangest thing you've ever?
Out in Montana, there's me and my cousin. Their property bordered a bunch of Forest Service land, and
Yeah.
about 3 miles from their house was a lake. And every time I'd spend the night at their house, we was probably 12, 13, 14 years old. We'd take off and take the tent, and we'd go hiking back there to that lake and spend the night back there. And that one area on the trail going back through there was always some kind of bones up in the tree. If you bumped the tree, the bones would fall out on the ground in front of you.
Wow. Dang. Was y'all scared any?
We was one night because something had been following us. We thought it was a mountain lion, but now that I think back on it, it's a mountain lion. If a mountain lion's following you, you're not going to hear it walking.
Right.
And whatever it was, we heard it walking, and now that I think back on it, sounded like it was walking on 2 feet.
Right.
And every once in a while, every little bit, we'd hear something whistle.
Hmm.
And then it would just stop. And we got back to the lake where we was going to camp that night, and we didn't have anything else happen to us.
They were keeping an eye on you, weren't they?
I believe so. They was probably watching us the whole time we was back there, too.
Yeah. It's almost like they got one assigned to keep an eye on the humans. So if they start coming their way, they can, prepare, flee the area. I was going to ask you, what's the strangest thing you've ever experienced, like out there in the woods or anywhere, really? I mean, you got any odd, strange stories? It doesn't hurt to ask. Sometimes,
not really.
Sometimes people will come up with something that happens, like, this ain't Bigfoot related, but this happened or something, and you'll get some.
No, I've never really had anything like you call supernatural happen to me when I've been in the woods. Oh, wait a minute. There was one time down there in that one area that I hunt at on, again, that same ridge, close to where I was at a couple weeks ago. There used to be, I don't know if it's still privately owned or not, but they used to call them the devil worshippers. And I was hunting probably a half mile or so from there. And them people was part of an occult, and they would, it's basically with devil worshippers. They had, this was back in the 70s, I think my father-in-law told me. There was, they had goat heads and all kinds of stuff hanging up around their house. They didn't have no electricity back in there. It's probably 6 miles from the nearest town. And that private land that they owned was completely surrounded by Forest Service on all sides. And they had, I think there's bull mastiffs, some kind of big dogs. And I think it was in the late 70s, somebody had went in there and murdered them 2 guys and killed their dogs and everything and burnt their house down. I haven't read that story in a long time. I hope I'm recalling everything right, but about 5 or 6 years ago, I was down in that area about a half a mile from there hunting, and I heard dogs barking in there. They sounded like big dogs. So I don't know if it was a ghost or something, them dogs that was barking or not. There's no houses around there for probably a good 4 or 5 miles.
Wow. Goat heads and stuff hanging around. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Man,
yeah, they was real big into it.
You know, I don't see how someone can live like that. It just sounds miserable to me.
Yeah, my father-in-law used to work for the Forest Service in this area. And that road that goes back through there now, he was on the survey crew that laid that road out. And he said one of them guys, it was one of them devil worshippers, had come up riding up on a pony, and he said it was in the middle of the winter, and there was a few inches of snow on the ground. This guy didn't have a shirt on and only had a pair of shorts on, no shoes or nothing. Come riding up on a pony, asked him what they was doing.
Dang. And that hellfire was keeping him warm, I guess. You know?
I believe so.
Got some of that devil blood going on in there. My goodness.
I've been tempted to go down there to that spot a couple times, but my gut instinct tells me to just stay away from that area.
Yeah, I would. You know, sometimes people have, noticed that they have Bigfoot and Dogman encounters around areas like that.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I don't know. I mean, like cemeteries or burial grounds, and you know, stuff like that. It makes you wonder, don't it?
Yep.
Well, you got anything else?
There's been a couple times while I was driving, I would see something like somebody walking along the side of the road, and then get up there where they was at, and there's nothing there.
In that same area?
No, this was up in Virginia.
Yeah, man, there's a lot of weird stuff like that in this world. That's for sure.
Yeah, there is.
I mean, that's why I listen to people when they tell me, you know, so yeah, they might say, I don't think you're going to believe this. And like, shoot, you know, try me.
I try to keep an open mind to everything. Because the way I look at it, anything's possible.
I mean, some of my own stories, they're unbelievable, you know.
Yep.
You know, I don't blame people for not believing it sometimes, you know.
And some of the stuff you hear, you just can't make that kind of stuff up.
Right, yeah. Yeah, like the Darrow thing, you know, when I encountered that. I mean, who the heck would ever make that up?
Yep.
You know, that long-nosed, freaky dude. That was very, very bizarre. It's not something you can forget, I tell you that. It was a very odd experience. It's one of the things.
Yeah, whenever I was little, whenever we lived there in Kentucky, there outside of Elizabethtown, our property bordered Fort Knox. There was all kinds of noises and stuff you'd hear over in that area, over there on Fort Knox property at night.
Wow. Huh.
My step-uncle would always tell me and my brother and his son not to go playing outside after dark over in the woods because red eyes will get you. Now that I think back on it, I know what he meant by red eyes will get you.
Yeah, that's something you were telling me yesterday too. And I'm telling you, dude, that I've seen those red eyes. And there was no light source. I mean, it was really, really thick cloud cover. And I didn't have my flashlight on. I was carrying camping gear, and I looked up and I saw those red eyes. And I don't care what anybody says, man. They had light coming from within them. There was just no way that it was any kind of reflection. It was so dark I couldn't hardly see. And it was really so dark that these things being, I guess they were black or dark brown or something, I couldn't see their bodies, but I could see those red eyes, you know, and I was like, dang, man, what the heck is that? And
yeah, like I told you last night, my mom, she worked, she was a head cook at a restaurant there in Elizabethtown, and she come home late at night. Me and my brother would always stay with my grandfather until she come home and got us. And our house was probably, I think it was about 600 yards from his house. And our property bordered Fort Knox. And she come home that one night. She got out of the car and she went to walk around the back side. She said it looked like somebody, like two people was standing over there across the road. just inside the wood line smoking cigarettes. She said she could see the cherry on the cigarettes, but that's all she could see.
Huh.
Then it wasn't long after that, my grandfather had a street light put up out there in front of his place.
So they were probably the eyes. It wasn't a cigarette, then.
Probably.
Because it
she
is
would
about
never
that.
admit something like that because she doesn't believe anything like that could be possible. But
Yeah. And it does look like that color, what I saw anyway. The cigarette,
yeah.
you know. When it took off, it you know, it didn't have any, like when a human runs, their head bobs up and down, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But this was just smooth, man. It was almost like it was gliding or flying, you know. It just was, and extremely fast. It was like bam, and it went a good distance pretty quick. And
yep.
from the angle,
whenever we moved to Montana, my parents sold that piece of property that we lived on there, but my grandfather still owned 11 acres that was beside of it. And then, let's see, it was about 2000. I moved back to Kentucky, and then about the summer of that year, my mom and dad moved back to Kentucky also, and they bought a 3-acre lot about a 3/4 of a mile out the road from where we used to live there. And again, that property bordered Fort Knox, and our neighbors that lived across the road, he lived up on the hill, and his driveway went at an angle up the hill. And whenever he'd come home from work, whenever he would come in from town or home from work or whatever, he would have to swing out to be able to make that turn to go up his driveway. There was one night he'd come home from work, and whenever he'd get home probably 2-3 o'clock in the morning because he worked night shift. Excuse me. And one night, whenever he swung out to make that turn to go up his driveway, his headlights hit something tall and hairy standing in the gully right there at the edge of the road at the corner of our property.
Wow.
And I had a Chow and Husky mix. He was an outside dog. We always kept him out behind the house. There was certain times of the year that dog would raise complete Cain back there all night long, barking and whining and growling.
Yeah. The other dogs, man, they freak out sometimes, don't they?
Yeah, but we'd go outside with a flashlight shining back there in the woods, but we couldn't see nothing. And we couldn't ever figure out what he was carrying on about.
Yeah, and those child breeds, they're usually pretty brave, you know.
Yeah, he was a brave dog. He'd stand up to anybody. And there was a couple times I went out there to look, and he was inside of his doghouse with his tail between his legs whining.
Yeah. Yeah, when they do that, that's when you need to pay attention, because there's something there, you know.
Yep.
I know that the little dog my friend had, whenever one was around, it would be right up next to you, you know, touching you. You know, it's like, what's wrong with the dog, you know? And or it would stay in the tent and wouldn't come out of the tent, you know. And,
yep.
It made me start paying attention to what was going on. Well, man, if you got anything else you want to share, you're welcome to do it.
I don't know. I don't think I do. If I come up with anything else, I'll send you an email or whatever.
Yeah, do that, man.
I know my father-in-law's had a bunch of stuff happen to him. I'll get with him and talk to him and see if he wouldn't mind me telling some of the things that's happened to him whenever he's been out in the woods and stuff.
Yeah, that'd be great, man. Make sure you do that. I'd be happy to have you back and tell it. But anyway, just hold on the line there, and everybody out there in YouTube land, I hope you enjoyed it. And like I said, you can email me at brentonsawin@gmail.com if you've got a story of your own you'd like to share. And then you can go to PayPal me and contribute. And I very much need it sometimes to make it through. And be looking for in the description for the the online store slash social hub link. I'll come back and put it in this video whenever my friend gets that pulled together, and I think you'll think that's pretty cool. It's a really neat thing that he does, and I appreciate that he even extended his services to me like that. Well, until next time, God bless you, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.